Let's talk about all of this and more with Democratic Congressman Ted Deutch of Florida. He's a member of both the Foreign Affairs and Judiciary Committees. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Wolf. Thanks for having me.
So we'll get to the Russia investigation. I want to get your immediate reaction to this White House, all the confusion over there over Rob Porter's security clearance. Yesterday, the White House blamed the FBI. Today, they're pointing fingers at the White House Personnel Security Office. You agree with the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, that this process is broken?
Well, the process, I don't know that the process is broken, but there's clearly something broken at the White House. Wolf, that photo, it took the release of a photo of a woman whose face had been beaten for the White House to finally do what it should have done 7 months ago when the FBI delivered its final report. We don't even know still whether Porter resigned or was fired. The way that the White House has reacted to this, the president looked at this photo and then wished him well on the way out the door, seemingly not even believing these claims. Yeah, you bet that there's something wrong. There is something wrong at a White House that allows someone like this to serve at the highest level, to deliver classified information directly to the President of the United States. There need to be some minimal standards for White House employees, and certainly someone who has been accused of beating his wife, the multiple accusations against him, against the speechwriter, the accusations of women being dragged by cars, cigarettes being put out on their hands. That's an enormous problem. The questions that it raises about how the White House does things are very troubling, and it's just part of the problem of all of these people leaving the White House. It's a mess when it comes to how they make the personnel decisions and moving forward how they need to. The Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, also said today that people with what are called interim security clearances should have what are called information on a limited basis. Have you gotten any assurances at all that the White House is doing that they're restricting these individuals who don't have full security clearances to only limited information? Well, we know in this case that this is not a junior staffer. This was not someone who only had passing access to information. This is the person who was responsible for personally delivering some of the most classified information directly to the President of the United States. So I'm not sure what kinds of limitations there were. The real question is how it is that the White House Chief of Staff continues to maintain that they did everything right when we now know that the FBI completed its review 7 months before. This is an administration and a president that has been besmirching the good work of the FBI, and now they're even questioning what the FBI had provided. It's very, very concerning. The heads of all the intelligence agencies who testified today, they all expressed unanimous concern about the Russian election interference in the November elections. But the FBI director, Christopher Wray, says President Trump has not specifically directed any of them any response to the Russians, and they're warning the Russians are getting ready to do it again in the midterms. How effective can they all be in combating that kind of Russian meddling without the direct support of the president? Right. They can't. And the president, the commander-in-chief, needs to be focused on protecting our democracy. But if you look at where we are at this point, this is a president that has refused to enforce sanctions that Congress passed in a bipartisan way, sanctions against the Russians for what they did in the last election. It is little wonder that the Russians look at the administration, they see the Russians look at the general saying he's not focused on it. Today, the heads of the intelligence agency said they've not been given instructions to focus on it. And we have to ask the question, why is that? Why won't the president enforce sanctions? Why won't he instruct everyone to take as seriously as they need to this very threat to our democracy? And why is it that he continues to attack the investigation into getting the facts of what happened in 2016? There is too much at stake for us to simply sit back and allow the president
to pass on the opportunity to take seriously this Russian threat.
Very quickly, why do you think the president has refused to do what his intelligence chiefs have all done?
Well, I certainly can't get into the president's head, but one would certainly conclude, if you look at the response from this president to the Mueller investigation, the ongoing efforts to call into question the investigation itself, to get in the way of the investigation going forward, the only conclusion is that the president is concerned about where this is all headed. This can't be about the president, Wolf. This has to be about protecting our democracy. That has to come first. The Mueller investigation needs to go forward, finding the facts wherever they take him, and the intelligence community needs to be tasked with going forward to protect